Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast, the show that brings you weekly advice and news at the beginning of every weekend. Introducing first your co-hosts Mac, Mark, Scott, and Landon. Are back with another Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 70. NFL Week 2 is upon us. We've got matchups, trade targets, and starts of the week. The whole crew is here. It's Saturday, September 14th. Mark, Scott, Mac, Landon, the whole crew ready to get you what you need to get that second victory or hopefully your first. What's been going on, fellas?
Man, after last week, it feels like week 70 for me, not episode 20. That was a long week one. I went through a roller coaster of emotions. I tilted. I yelled.
You always yell.
I always yell. I'm a loud man.
Tilter.
But no, I love that football is back. I don't even know. I think I only won one matchup this week. Oof. I hope you guys, everyone in the listener leagues and listening, did better than I. But Scotty, did you have a good week one in fantasy football?
I had a mixed week one in fantasy. Just like you said, lots of injuries. It was hard to keep up with all the news. But I did happen to call, I don't know if you were watching, a start of the week with Deshaun, my boy Jackson, and I had so much fun watching that game.
Revenge game.
For me, I'm going to call it a week one win because, that felt so good to watch.
James Coe, he said, who the hell, how did we miss this Deshaun Jackson revenge game? And I tweeted him, I'm like, not our boy Scotty. He was all over that narrative, and he was like, good stuff, man. Like, good for you. You nailed that one.
Revenge.
Bang. I am super pumped to be back in the booth with you, money-making gentlemen. I feel like everything was building up to last week and that we have done our job. We made some takes that necessarily weren't true. We made some great takes. I feel like I'm coming off a huge high. I lost an important one against you, Mac, but I won two other ones, and really, I feel like I'm starting off this season better than I started off last one, and frick, I don't know what else to say, man. It's big. I'm happy. We're ready to carry on to week 2.
It was a weird week for me too. I went 3 for 3. I guess 4 for 3. Landon and I are in that Fantasy Football Challenge Cup run by the 5 Yard Rush over in the UK. So it's like a 264 team, Survivor contest, best ball. And so we won first week. It goes into week 2 is like the 2-week matchup. So we are, I think, 100 points ahead. So we should be cruising. But yeah, the teams that I thought would win really kind of laid eggs. And then the teams that I didn't feel great about came out with victories. It was just a really weird week. And you see all these rookies show out. If you listen to the Patreon pod, we talked about a lot of names, TJ Hawkinson, Marquise Brown, the list goes on with the rookies that really kind of showed out. But it was just a crazy week one, as it always is, as it always proves to be in fantasy football.
Well, it's funny. Every one of us was a super genius, and we knew everything up until 1 o'clock last Sunday, right?
Hey, we had some fun early
on Sleeper.
Sunday morning. I logged on at 10:30 a.m. Started answering people's questions. Starts it. You guys jumped in with me. I think we hit a lot. I think we did really well.
I think it was 364 messages.
Man, so if you're listening, jump on with us on Sleeper. We'll tweet out the links. And if your start sit, days of, catch up on any news. We hit a lot of T.Y. Hiltons that people wanted to bench their stud. But week one is tough to get fancy with it, you know, Mackie?
You know what? For the next 50 minutes or so,
we nailed that Mark Andrews call.
For the next 50 minutes or so, we're just going to pretend like we have a crystal ball and we know exactly what we're talking about. Wherever you guys are, however you may be listening to us, we want to thank you for being here. You're listening on Saturday, September 14th. We are recording on Wednesday, September 11th. And we got some news to get into here. If you want to keep up with the show, you can do so on Instagram and Twitter at SMS_fantasy. If you want to get Landon, Mark, Scott, you can do so by getting their individual handles in the episode description. But with that being said, let's jump into some fantasy news.
Yeah, big news of the day today. Chargers announced that tight end Hunter Henry suffered a tibia plateau fracture to his left knee during last Sunday's game against the Colts. That is crushing. That is bad for the Chargers. There were still concerns today of Mike Williams and his knee as well. So
Chargers are falling apart.
Not good for LA. So
when I was doing the just a quick note, when I was doing the research for this show today, I commonly go on the Yahoo fantasy like transaction trends, and I was seeing who traded for who, and I saw that Hunter Henry was traded for Kerryon Johnson before this news came out. Like, if you were the person that made that trade, condolences, because that is like, you lose Hunter Henry, but now you just acquired him for Kerryon. Man, like,
they're
daggers.
hopeful to get him back.
Go buy yourself a bottle.
Pour one out.
Yeah. They're hopeful to have him back in 2019, but it doesn't look good. I get that kind of trade. I get, like, the tight end position is so valuable. If you have a stud, you're selling Kerryon at his lowest he could possibly get, but
which we're going to tell you not to do. So wait until the trade targets, the buy low, sell high type of scenarios. But yeah, like that's not what we're advocating for you to do.
Next, one thing I will mention, Joe Mixon's day-to-day. By Saturday, by the time you listen to this, you should probably know if he's going to start. So that's not huge news that's going to help you out on Saturday morning, but monitor Joe Mixon, fire up Gio Bernard if he is.
The nice thing with the Joe Mixon thing is that, we thought he might be out for weeks, and everything came back negative. So there is a good chance, it's probably more than 50-50 that he will play come Sunday.
Yeah. What else we got, guys?
All right. Well, looking at the highest powered offense in this league, unfortunately, the Chiefs will be without Tyreek Hill for about 4 to 6 weeks. They're calling it a sternoclavicular joint injury for all of
Can you use some MDs can you use some regular people words?
Yeah, his shit's all messed up, yo. Words from Andy Reid's mouth. But honestly, looking at this from a fantasy perspective, obviously you cannot touch Sammy Watkins right now because no one in their right mind would ever let him go. But we're thinking Mecole Hardman might be worth a stretch. He is a lightning quick guy as well, and he might be worth trying to seek out right now because he didn't do anything in week 1, but week 2 could be his time to splash. And you got to make hay when those big guys are out. Agreed.
I think Mecole Hardman could be added in all formats. You're right. Without Tyreek Hill in the lineup, there's a huge hole. And let's face it, Sammy Watkins wouldn't have done what he did if Tyreek hadn't have left the game. 198 yards and 3 touchdowns is, you got to think some of that's going to Tyreek. We didn't see any of that from Sammy last year. But it's nice to see that he can get it done. But I think McColl's worth a flyer, like a wide receiver 3 or a deeper flex play. For sure. One thing to note with the Tyreek Hill injury, he's not being placed on IR. So depending on your league's injury reserved, designation, you might not be able to put players who have an out status in IR. So that's just one thing that's important to note.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention, that news that came out a couple days ago, is Antonio Brown. I don't really want to comment on that either. We'll know more if he's going to play on Sunday. As of right now, as of this recording, we don't know his status. We can't really give you legal advice. I don't know what's going to happen.
Not a doctor.
NFL is going to do their due diligence, and if he did what he's been accused, he should not be in the NFL.
Okay, we're going to fly into the fantasy matchups of the week. Before we do that, all the data that we get to support our thinking and some of our perspectives come from Fanatic. They are our partner. They are one of our partners for the year, and all of the data that we get is from them. So they do a really good job of getting you everything that you need in a digestible and simple manner. You log onto the app and you got a variety of different things. They just added in target leaders and target share leaders. So some of these things, like we're going to talk about Jamison Crowder today, or Scott is. He led all receivers in targets this week. What does that mean for a wide receiver? We'll get into that, but Fanatic brings that to you. There's lots of things like news. You can get stuff coming directly from us. So go ahead and download the app today. It's only in the App Store, iOS. It's FANATIQ. Download Fanatic today. Okay, we've got the New Orleans Saints on the road to play the Los Angeles Rams. This one comes in as one of the bigger ones of the week, 52-point over-under. The Rams are favored by 2.5, trending to be good weather, sunny weather. You would expect that in Southern California. What do you guys think about this game? I mean, there's fantasy fireworks ahead of us, no doubt. Who do you like?
I'll take this one. After watching both teams last week, I really think that Goff's in for a bounce back week this week. It's going to be a tough one because that Saints offense, once it got going, was pretty much full tilt in the second half. But I actually see Kamara attack, I think Kamara is going to have a big day even against Aaron Donald, and I see Goff attacking through the air. So I see a really big bounce back week for all the Rams receivers.
Who's your favorite? Well. Who's your favorite receiver in that offense right now, of what you saw with your eyes?
Goff wasn't looking sharp. So I am a big Woods fan, but I could see somebody like Kupp coming through this week and just kind of coming through. They really are 1A, B, and C in my mind right now. It really comes down to Goff actually performing like the big money contract man he is.
My initial takeaway was that Kupp was the receiver to own. I really thought that Goff's targets were more on target when he was looking at Kupps. He missed some wide open guys. Marky, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it's like you guys said. It was a totally uncharacteristic performance from Goff, and I too expect a bounce back. Maybe that Carolina Panthers defense, they to me brought more to the table than people were expecting of them. So going up against this New Orleans Saints defense, I feel like there's a few more holes that he'll be able to exploit. We're 1 week in. He was expected to have a massive season, and I don't think he's going to let down 2 weeks in a row. So that's the quarterback and wide receiver situation. But I'm more interested in the Gurley and Brown tandem in the backfield, just like you'd be wondering if you had either one of those guys on your team. Do you start Brown given the fact that he gave you points from the bench last week? Do you start Gurley, even though people are calling his good week a bust? What do you think, Mac?
This is troubling for me. I think you guys, before I even spit out what I'm going to say, you could probably read between the lines. Listen, Todd Gurley is fine. Todd Gurley is more than fine. I mean, he had 102 all-purpose yards, 97 of them on the ground. Really wasn't involved in the passing game, but the passing game wasn't really working for for the Rams. Jared Goff really struggled downfield. That's reflected in the target count. Robert Woods led 13, Cooper Kupp 10, Brandon Cooks lagging behind. So those downfield throws, a little bit of rust maybe for Jared Goff. But the matter of the fact is, yes, Malcolm Brown got 2 touchdowns, and he was brought in around the goal line. If Malcolm Brown doesn't have 2 touchdowns, if one of them goes to Gurley, Malcolm Brown is probably not even found on your waiver wire. It would be like a very, very deep, like a 14-16 team league where you would see him wavered. Now people are wavering Malcolm Brown as if he is the new Todd Gurley. And it's just not even close to the case. So go ahead, Landon.
The only thing, I agree with you, Mac. You picked him up. I would not feel comfortable starting Malcolm Brown this week. However, what you do know is that Malcolm Brown is the handcuff. We thought it might be Darrell Henderson, the exciting rookie. We were all hyped about all these rookie running backs, and almost everyone disappointed. It was the other way around. All of the rookie wide receivers killed it. It was awesome. We'll talk about them a little bit later, but it was cool to see. It's funny. It's almost like every analyst got it kind of wrong this year in the offseason, but I'm still psyched about it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on a couple occasions. I think that Darrell Henderson would take time to get worked in. But I just don't think that outside of this game that Malcolm Brown has a lot of standalone value. I mean, Todd Gurley's still going to get his. And
if an injury happens, if his knee flares up, know that Malcolm Brown is going to be an RB1 if Gurley's out.
In regards to Darrell Henderson, he is a cut for me. He got 1 carry.
Yeah.
He's a cut.
Yeah.
Until Malcolm Brown is out of the picture, Darrell Henderson is a cut. But don't shy away from Todd Gurley. I think he's fine. People are, like Mark said off air here, people are perceiving this 102 all-purpose yardage game as a bust for Todd Gurley because they expect the world when they think of Todd Gurley in the fantasy realm. And yeah, you know what? You didn't get that from him. But the floor is safe. And he's efficient. Like, he looked great.
He looked good.
Great.
He looked good.
Absolutely fantastic. So you give him 1 touchdown, you split that up with Malcolm Brown. No one's even talking about this in any respect.
So my follow-up now, any one of you guys can take this, but I'm looking at the 52-point over and under with the Rams favored at minus 2.5. Obviously, it's going to be a beautiful day. What do you guys think of this point spread?
I mean, I'll refer you back to when they played each other last year, November 4th. 80 combined points, 45-35. I mean, these teams have a history of fireworks. I take the over.
Yeah, I'd agree. The Rams do have, they still are, in my opinion, one of the more elite defenses in the NFL. But really, based on what we saw from the Saints against Houston, which was just an epic Monday night game, I really could see some fireworks flying. If the weather's great and Goff returns to form, I really think that, we're going to see fireworks, and it's going to be a high-scoring game, which is just a fantasy treasure trove for anybody you've got on either side.
Yeah, one other thing I'll add here is that referring to that Monday night game, which was amazing, by the way. That was probably my favorite game of the week.
Oh, it was so much fun.
With the missed extra point from Fairbairn and then that brutal roughing the kicker call. And then, they get it back, they make it, and then Drew Brees just surgically marches the guys down the field, and 58 yards, Will Lutz just hammers that thing. I mean, what a game.
Career high.
Yeah.
58 yards and had room.
That thing was probably good from like 63.
And don't forget the Will Fuller catch. That was a spectacular
That was. I mean, all things aside, the key takeaways for me when I look into this matchup is even Carlos Hyde was able to run on the Saints. So I think when you mix in the tandem now of Gurley and Brown, I think the Rams will have no problem moving the ball on the ground. So I just think, Goff's going to be better. There's no doubt. I mean, I think a little preseason rust is probably now worn off, and they'll be on the same page. I mean, everyone sees a little bit of downfall week 1. I feel good about this game. On the other side of the ball, Kamara's great. He's safe. Latavius Murray, I expect a little bit more from. Michael Thomas, fantastic as well. But I want to flip it over to you guys. Traquan Smith, where do you project him this week?
I think he could be a wide receiver 3. He's got a ton of upside. We know he's got a ton of talent. He caught a touchdown last week, and in a high-scoring game, I think he's more of a good DraftKings play than he is a seasonal league. You probably don't have to start him. You probably have some better options, but I like him as a stash on your teams. And if he starts getting the targets, that's really what we want to see. If we get more targets, if Drew Brees has more faith in him, and I think he should be good. But right now, the offense runs through Kamara and Thomas, and until that really changes, I wouldn't feel ultra comfortable starting Traquan on a week-to-week basis, even in a matchup as juicy that they could score 80 points. I still don't feel ultra comfortable with that.
Agreed.
But should we move on to a less sure thing of a game?
I think the last thing here is what about Jared Cook?
You have to start him. We just lost Hunter Henry, and the tight end landscape's pretty poor. Greg Olsen has a back injury. He's got a short week. You probably don't want to start him Thursday night if you could avoid it. I think Jared Cook, on where you took him, he's an odd. Even if he busted week 1, you must start.
I mean, the nice thing that we saw from Drew Brees is that we thought probably for the season, passing volume's still going to remain low, but I mean, it was high against the Texans because that was just the game script, and it was nice to see that early. So yeah, I'm good with Jared Cook as well. I'd probably roll him out. He's on our fringe top 10 right now. I think he's going to be number 10 on the week. So yeah, roll Jared Cook out with some confidence.
Nice, boys.
So we picked an interesting game here because there's a lot of question marks. We've got Indianapolis at Tennessee, and Jacoby Brissett and Marcus Mariota. Not 2 quarterbacks that are rostered on any of your teams, and nor should they be. But
not
they do present
the guys we even came here to talk about. This is a bad preface.
But you have Marlon Mack had he was a top 2 finisher at the position, and you have Derrick Henry who also exploded. That, I mean, one of Mac's least favorite humans
of all time
on this earth.
Yeah.
We had T.Y. Hilton that people were so down on that actually had a really big game too as well. And then A.J. Brown, who kind of stirred out. He looked like a man out there as a rookie. And then Corey Davis, who put up a zero targets. And that's not thrilling. He's probably on your waiver wire. So what do you guys think about this game? Who do you think is going to win? Are you comfortable starting everyone I mentioned, or are you going to fade some of these guys? Are they sell high candidates? Who wants to really start with this game analysis?
Well, if I was going to jump in, there was also one name that I feel like you did forget, and it is the ageless wonder, Mr. Delaney Walker. You want to talk about who you need to start? 2 touchdowns in week 1, coming right out of the gate, going right back at it as a tight end.
Let me just say it for you, Scott.
So I'll just start right there by saying I'm starting him in 3 leagues, and I feel good about doing it in week 2.
Bow down to the emperor.
Bow down.
Scott was insufferable.
It's terrible. I mean, that's probably the only thing he's gotten right so far, so we got to give it to him. But
he's got old man.
You're allowed a victory lap.
All the old guys.
You're allowed a victory lap here.
Yeah. Tell me a young guy you like, Scott.
DK Metcalf. He's delightful.
All right. Marky, what do you think? You have Derrick Henry as a sell high candidate.
Yes, I mean, obviously, for anyone who has had Derrick Henry on a fantasy team before, this guy's not someone that you want to put all your chips in. If you are playing him, you're probably playing, I would guess, 2 other running backs on your team just as like an insurance policy. But this guy obviously splashed, was super hard to take down, had a 75-yard screen go for a score, and he played like a boss. And Mac, as much as you have expressed your dislike for the guy. I haven't been one to express that, and I got this guy as like an RB1 right now. So, you know, the team I had him on exploded this week, and I hope it's not a one-time thing because I'm going to roll him out next week again. Love Henry on this team. AJ Brown, super impressive. And, you know, on the other side of the ball with the Colts, the two main names that you would expect, Mack and Hilton, I think those guys are week-by-week rollouts right now. Love the way they all looked. And a big division matchup here, too. What do you got to say about that?
Cue the apology music, Mac. Take this.
No. Cut that.
Come on. Let's go. Come on.
Here's the thing. As Landon always says, you got to stay water. You got to be flexible. You got to adapt. I was very vocal in the offseason, if you were listening to us, that if Derrick Henry saw a consistent workload, I would be willing to roster him. Okay? So he did get it. I mean, this is the exact game script that we wanted for Derrick Henry. If the Titans are winning and they are up, Derrick Henry will be involved. And much like Marlon Mack, Derrick Henry took time to get going. He really only started to be overly productive, fantasy relevant, in the second half. I mean, when he broke off that long screen pass all the way for a touchdown, I mean, he's so slow, yet no one could catch him. It was the weirdest thing. But Marlon Mack was the same thing, man. 10 for 21 at half, ends up with 25 for 174 and a score. So when I look at this game, I feel like this game could be fairly defensive. I mean, the Tennessee Titans looked unbelievable on defense. They shut down the Browns. And, you know, Indy, they hung with the Chargers, right? So I think that both...
What a wonderful apology, Mac. That was really nice.
Okay.
Very sincere.
It really felt good for all involved.
Derrick Henry's one of the guys, though, that we're going to talk about. I don't think you can acquire him because this is exactly what people wanted. So, look, for this game's sake, I think it's going to be a game that is defensive at times. I think there's not going to be a lot of passing. I mean, Jacoby Brissett only attempted 27 passes, 9 of them to T.Y. He's got a 33% target market share. I think that's good. The volume's still there, but I actually don't really love this game for fantasy. I really don't.
So, like a low-key trap game. What about the pass catchers for Indy? Is T.Y. kind of the only guy you're going to start? What's your level of confidence with T.Y.? Sell high candidate. What about the tight ends, Ebron or Doyle? That's what people want to know. They bought Ebron pretty high, probably. If it's probably a seasonal league, it's their home league. They see Ebron. They saw his touchdowns last year. Maybe it was before Andrew Luck went down.
I've had a couple people message me on Twitter saying, you know, what do I do with Eric Ebron right now? Like, and my thing was just breathe, let it go, hold out a couple weeks, and then make a decision. One thing that's
then you can drop them because you're not going to trade them.
For me, it's a hold just because, like you said, the tight end landscape is so gross. Eric Ebron's a big name. He will be wavered if you let him go. On the flip side, Devin Funchess is out. So who is the beneficiary for Devin Funchess? Many people will...
Jack Doyle, baby. Let's go.
I mean, people have different answers to this question. People are saying it's going to be Nyheim Hines. Other people are saying that it's going to be Paris Campbell. He's going to step up. Or other people are saying, hey, man, Deion Kane's been here for a while. He's actually going to be the guy. I mean, who do you guys think is going to be the guy?
I actually think that this probably will benefit the tight end position more than any. I mean, they do have a lot of talent there. And I think anytime a wide receiver goes down like Funchess, it does open up more. Hilton's going to get fed. We all know he's going to get fed in this offense. But I do think Ebron's a talented tight end, and you could do worse than Jack Doyle, who's had 1 reception for 20 yards last week, Landon. So let's calm down on that front. But I do think that it'll probably get spread around a bit more, but I would see more uptick for a guy like Ebron because I think your other wide receivers are still going to get fed no matter what if you're named Hilton.
I would probably take the under on the 45 points. It's going to be a defensive struggle. Tennessee Titans defense was a hot ad this week. I took him in a league as well. and I could see it being kind of just a gross defensive game. Marky, do you have any final comments on this, or are you excited about AJ Brown? I got him everywhere. I'm psyched about AJ.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, among the rookie wide receivers, he's probably like the fourth one that I would talk about. But that's just also, I'm not someone that would buy into a Tennessee victory and think it will loom for more victories in the imminent future. I am always wary of what's going to happen because this team is so unpredictable and flashy. But AJ Brown looked like he ran some nice routes last week, and let's hope that he gets a couple more targets and can make hay, because you do like seeing that out of a young, promising player.
Before we depart from this matchup, give me some answers. Marcus Mariota finished as the QB 10 last week. Jacoby Brissett finished as the QB 18. Are you confident in streaming either one of these guys this week?
No.
Negative, my friend.
I think you could do worse than Mariota as a desperation play in the streaming. I wouldn't go for Brissett yet against this Titans offense or defense that would terrify me.
Yep. So
there's far too many good quarterbacks
Agreed.
out there that even had a bad week that I feel more confident in.
I'm talking a 2 QB 16 team league.
I'm talking Gardner Minshew over both.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't mind that either. If we also have Mac, you and I did a week 2
Yes, we
rankings
did. On
quarterback,
Patreon, posted.
running back, wide receiver, tight end, all on Patreon. It's updating daily. We just took out Hunter Henry out of
Sad
the
but true.
rankings, and it's check that out. If join Patreon for us, it helps us out a lot.
Let's jump over to our next matchup. This one I like a hell of a lot more for fantasy. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Oakland Raiders. Chiefs on the road to visit the Raiders. 53-point over/under. KC by 7. I'm going to come out and say this right now. Derek Carr looked great last week.
I think AB is going to be a wide receiver 1 this
Yeah,
week.
if he plays.
Just
Relax.
kidding. He doesn't play for the Raiders.
No, I'll. You know what? I'm going to agree with Mac. I actually thought that the Raiders in general. I think they surprised a lot of people. They came out focused, determined, pissed off, and they looked great as a team. Whether that was just a 1 week explosion or not, I mean, there were some great fantasy performances all around. Josh Jacobs really. What a first week for a rookie.
Yeah, so those are the big takeaways for me. I thought Josh Jacobs looked great. I thought Tyrell Williams was used a lot more than I thought he would be as the feature person in this offense. And Derek Carr looked great.
And Darren Waller,
Yeah,
let's
good call.
go. Mark, what do you think about this? I love Waller. He's mint.
I think we should take a second to recognize that Derek Carr was a different player than he was
Agreed.
last year. He was disciplined. He spread the ball all over the place. He was making just like laser throws, and his footwork to me just seemed like he can put up a way better percentage than he did last year. And as far as streaming quarterbacks, going back to the previous game we just talked about, Derek Carr is the type of guy that I would want to add right now, or if I have him, possibly even sell.
Yeah, agreed.
And another thing that I mean, everybody saw, and it was interesting to read a couple of the interviews with Denver players where they said, were you ready for Tyrell Williams? Did you see this coming? And a lot of them said, we played against him in San Diego and we knew how talented he was. And they all seem to think that he is a WR1. He is a leader and he will do great with AB gone. And you know what? After watching that game, I really believe them.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one thing with Tyrell Williams is that the Chargers loved him, but the price tag was just too high. And he found himself a good situation in Oakland and made the most of it. I mean, he was very productive on only 7 targets. Darren Waller actually led this team with 8 targets. But going back to Derek Carr, he's only owned in 31% of leagues, so he is an unbelievable streaming candidate. I think the game script is great for Derek Carr and all Raiders pass catchers. Let's face it, the Chiefs are probably going to be up in this one. Even though it is a divisional game, I think it lends really well to the pass catchers. So let's go a little bit deeper here. I mean, Tyrell Williams is safe. What about Hunter Renfrow?
No, I don't think so. I'm just not. I'm not into that. I think this offense goes through those three guys. I think Waller, Jacobs, and Tyrell.
Ryan Grant,
and that it's kind of it. Neither of those guys really impressed me. Despite it's going to be too hard to predict the touchdowns, and that's what you're going to have to rely on with these guys. Unless we see some consistency, and if one of those two takes that lead role from Tyrell, then I would consider it. But as of right now, Tyrell's the one. Waller's the 1B because of his targets. He's a converted wide receiver. I have high hopes for him this year, and Josh Jacobs is a stud. And people overdrafted Montgomery, even though Jacobs was that guy.
Yeah, major regrets on the dynasty draft of N'Keal Harry over Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
So you guys know, Josh Jacobs right now is our running back 17 on the week. Just game script. If the game script was a little bit better, he'd probably be higher. But I thought Josh Jacobs looked great. But I agree with Landon. On that pass catching side for the Raiders, it's Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller, or bust. So I think it's good to leave it there. We've talked about the Chiefs a little bit. Is there anybody that you sort of want to talk about? I mean, Travis Kelce's probably a point of contention here, from last week. Travis Kelce was the tight end 9. A lot of people thought he should have been in the top 3, no doubt. If Mahomes hadn't have no-looked him in the red zone, he probably is, tight end 3 or 4. How do you feel about Travis Kelce? It's probably a silly question, but, give those people that are doubting a little bit of hope.
Yeah, no, Travis Kelce's the goat.
I'll hop in on that. I mean,
yeah.
There is no concern about Travis Kelce. Like you said, if Mahomes had looked his way, then you're not having this discussion. It's a great day. He's still an absolute locked and loaded tight end 1, and I don't know anyone who's trying to say any other story but that. There's no tight end I would rather line up week to week than Travis Kelce, and that has not changed in any way.
Mark, do you want to talk?
I suppose I'll add one other little rejoinder, and that's just maybe if you were looking to snipe Damian Williams, underwhelming week 1 from him, and you might want to just sink your teeth in that. Ask around anyway in your league, because this guy is destined for touches, and when you got a passing game that's as vicious as the Chiefs, try and cash in on some of that running action as well.
If you have Damian Williams right now, are you in a position to hold on for dear life and hope that Shady kind of disappears, or are you panic selling?
I think you have to hold. You don't want to sell low on a guy like that. You saw Shady really look good and be like his old self and have such a high yards per carry, and Williams was the opposite but got in for the touchdown, so saved his day. And yeah, I think you have to hang on to him. You just have to. You might not feel good about it, but it's like you feel better than you did if you have a Devonta Freeman.
Yep.
Right? And it might, in the end, it might be the opposite. It might flip-flop. This is week 1, guys, but you can't sell Damian Williams on that offense right now.
For me, Darwin Thompson is a cut right now in redraft. Dynasty is a different story, but in redraft, he is an absolute cut. Like we said earlier, Mecole Hardman is a waiver, an ad in pretty much all formats.
The darling.
And, just a darling. And we will wait out that that backfield and see really what happens. But week 1 wasn't too good for Damian.
Is Sammy Watkins a wide receiver 1 until Tyreek gets back?
You'd have to think so. I mean, the best offense in the NFL. How do you not consider Sammy Watkins? 11 targets, 9 receptions, 198 yards. That just shows that he can have the big game. Like, we've never seen that from Sammy before.
It's since Buffalo and a couple games in LA, but like nothing crazy.
Never to that tune, though.
Not to the yards. He had touchdowns. Yeah.
Cool. Do you guys want to do the trap game, or you want to move on?
Quick trap game. We have the Philadelphia Eagles visiting the Atlanta Falcons. It's a tough one. This is a tough trap game because it's a 51-point over-under. Should be a good game. People were psyched that Philly came back, and Atlanta was a hyper disappointed. They're like a classic bounce back candidate for this week. You want to see Julio get like 170 yards in a touchdown kind of game, but people were very disappointed with the running backs in Philly. Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, and Darren Sproles just took way too many looks away from everyone and just frustrated owners everywhere. He's probably still on waiver wires because no one believes in Sproles. But what I really felt good about was Alshon Jeffrey. He looked really good. JJ Arcega-Whiteside kind of disappointed me. I really hope that he would kind of see that rookie bump like the rest did, but he's on every waiver wire. And Zach Ertz disappointed a lot of people. Is anyone else concerned with Zach Ertz? Like, I know it was kind of a joke of a question for Travis Kelce, but people are actually concerned with the volume that Zach Ertz did not see.
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Concerned about Zach Ertz at all.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But the Atlanta side, Devonta Freeman, what do you do with this guy?
You buy him.
Yeah, yep. So I like that, Mac. Does Scott and Mark feel that same way about Devonta Freeman? Do you have that kind of confidence with him, or is this a stay away for you guys?
He seems to me almost like a bit of a liability. That guy he drops the ball, okay? He's a fumbler. And that's one thing that, like, I don't know if it's necessarily a factor in the fact that they really, like, couldn't do anything against the Minnesota Vikings. And to me, it's just, obviously, if a Matt Ryan-led offense against the Minnesota Vikings can't do anything until it no longer mattered, I don't know. I don't really have a ton of confidence in that backfield. And I think we've been saying for too long that Freeman has got to be the guy, and he's got that role all to himself, so he's going to put up the points no matter what. I don't fully buy into that, so I'm sorry, Mac. I don't agree.
I just think for sort of what you just said there, that's the narrative that a lot of people are clinging to right now. They're like, I drafted Devonta Freeman. He's not the same since an injury. You know, this O-line is trash. And everyone has a negative attached to Devonta Freeman right now. What, like, if the price to pay for Devonta Freeman was, you know, something super, super low, why not go out and take that potential upside? Because we've seen him be a top 12 back in this league. So to sort of overreact to week one against, let's face it, a really good defense, historically in the Minnesota Vikings, I don't think it's crazy to try and buy low on Devonta Freeman. Like, you could probably get Devonta Freeman right now for, like, Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I mean, I've also never really been much of a fan of him as well. The oft-injured tag always kind of comes to mind, so I do think you've got a lot going against him. It's easy to overreact to week one, and I do agree. If you can get him for, a song or a prayer, he's still as a starting running back in the NFL. Atlanta should be up at some point, so they will need to run up the clock eventually. But I will admit that week one, they really just, as a whole offense, looked very confused. And it wasn't until garbage time that any points were had for him.
Speaking of garbage, did you see their O-line?
Well, and that's part of the fear,
too.
right? Is you can say it was just a bad week and he's a good candidate, but good running backs have good O-lines normally. That's where your Zekes and all that come from. But he is a candidate, I guess, if you could get very, very cheaply. But I would not be going high on him.
And I'm saying that you don't have to. I'm saying you can buy him for literally nothing right now. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, anytime you get a back that has rushed for over 1,000 yards and gets an extra 500 in the passing game, he's done it twice. Why not take a chance? Why not take, a flyer on Devonta Freeman? I don't understand why you wouldn't.
Well, anytime if you can get him at, for very little, a starting running back with catch potential, I'll agree with you on that. I wouldn't say no to that in any league.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else to say about this game?
Do you still have the confidence in Austin Hooper?
Yes, absolutely. I have the confidence in the Atlanta Falcons. I think they just got themselves into a really tough week 1 matchup, just like the Packers did with the Bears. Like you said, Landon, defense travels.
Yeah, week 1 it's easy.
Okay. Enough of that. We are going to jump into some trade targets, some guys that you would buy low and cash in on some value. So we're going to quick time these, fellas. Mike Evans, are you interested in buying?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Who would you trade him for right now?
Absolutely. You know what? Let me pose a question to that question. Mac, you're a Sammy Watkins owner. If you could get Mike Evans for Sammy Watkins right now, would you pull the trigger?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Another guy that comes to mind is T.Y. Hilton. Very efficient, only caught 9 balls, did have a 33% target share, but scored 2 touchdowns. Let's face it, he's not going to be the same without luck. Volume will still be there, but I would cash in on T.Y. Hilton, where Mike Evans is going to be better season long. So, yeah, I would do both of those guys for Evans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think T.Y. had a great week, but I don't think it's going to be that performance every week from him. It's going to be kind of more boom or bust this season.
Lando?
The thing is with a guy like Evans is you have to trade a big name and a big name that had a
I think
good
like a
week.
Jeffrey. Jeffrey might be a good trade for
Alshon?
Evans right now.
Yep.
Alshon, yeah. You might need one more big week from Jeffrey and another bad
about
week
Larry
from
Fitzgerald?
Evans to get that deal done. Yeah, I'm looking at that kind of name stood out. I would absolutely
If someone was willing
someone's
to take
trade
Fitzgerald
Larry,
for Evans, I'd make that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Tyrell in a heartbeat, Gallup in a heartbeat. Emmanuel Sanders, yes. What about Josh Gordon?
That's interesting. I mean, Mike Evans was abysmal. He finished as the wide receiver 67.
I mean, that entire Buccaneers
Chris Godwin,
offense was
40
anemic.
spots higher. Yeah, I mean, the only guy that really benefited was Chris Godwin.
Yeah, with the
Okay.
touchdown.
What about this running back trio? Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones, or David Montgomery, all in the same cesspool of fantasy production from week 1. I mean, people had high hopes, didn't really pan out. Who would you trade away after week 1 to acquire one of these running backs?
I would trade for pretty much all of them. I think the one
Same.
that I don't have the highest, well, I'm just a little bit down on Kerryon. A little bit. I like Kerryon. I've got him in a couple leagues, so maybe it's just because I'm an owner that I'm just down on him. But I would trade like a pass catching. I would trade Tariq Cohen. I would trade James White for any of these guys. They all had pretty good production week 1. You're probably going to keep Austin Eckler, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
I'm comfortable in taking Deshaun Jackson if I have him and piecing him off. I mean, let's face it, he's probably not your wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 with where you drafted him. You probably wavered him or got him in like late teen rounds. So look, like go out and get yourself a potential RB1/2 for
what
Deshaun
about
Jackson.
Devin Singletary? Would you trade him for one of these guys?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Devin Singletary had 70 yards on 4 attempts. Like, let's
Yeah.
not read into that too far.
Yeah, but people are
We're absolutely
hyped.
hyped.
About
about it, but
absolutely.
He's also
Yeah.
part of that Buffalo Bills offense. So if I can get a piece of the other, those other guys in
Yep.
different offenses, Buffalo is going to week to week probably disappoint.
Adam Thielen. Would you trade Adam Thielen for any of these guys?
No.
No, I don't
No,
think
I
No,
so.
I'm not letting Thielen go if I've got him.
He's still
Those
top
guys.
tier.
Kenny
No.
Galladay?
No.
Okay. All right. I see where you guys are at.
Let's talk about Brandon Cooks. I mean, this is a guy that we talked about a little bit in the show, a lot actually.
I put him as a buy low.
Brandon Cooks had a down week compared to Woods and Cup. Like, what guys are you looking to pair off to get Brandon Cooks on your team?
I would trade away Tyler Lockett, probably. I would trade Dede Westbrook. Would you guys trade Chris Godwin for Brandon Cooks?
I wouldn't know.
You'd rather Godwin.
Yeah.
No.
What about Allen Robinson, who had a pretty good week?
Yes.
I think Robinson for Cooks. Yeah,
okay.
I do.
Absolutely.
Tyler Boyd?
Yes.
Okay.
I would also do Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, for sure. I would too. Calvin had a good game, but it was salvaged by that touchdown. I do expect pretty good things for Calvin Ridley this year, but I prefer, obviously, the LA Rams offense.
What about Leonard Fournette? People are down on him right now. I certainly think that he's going to be fantastic this year. He's one of my guys for 2019. I'm looking to try and get Leonard Fournette pretty much everywhere I can. So give me some pieces that I could piece off for Leonard Fournette.
See, you could probably buy, any studs that had a bad week. Would you like kind of like trade down for down kind of thing?
You'd have to.
Down for down?
Have to. And especially right now,
Yeah.
Fournette is working with a banged up O-line, a new quarterback, and I honestly you'd have to go someone like maybe Lindsey or Mixon. Like, honestly, you can only go based off week one performance here. There's so little to go off. I don't know.
Would you trade Damian Williams for Leonard Fournette?
I would.
I'd do that.
I would.
Would you trade
No.
Mark Ingram for Leonard
I would not
Fournette?
I don't
personally.
think
at
I
this
would
point.
either.
Mark Ingram was running back 7 week 1 in a very
And
run
looked
heavy
amazing.
offense. What about Marlon? Yeah, he did. And what about
I would
Marlon
not
Mack or
trade either
Derrick
of those
Henry?
for Leonard Fournette at this point. I know that you're very high on him, and he could be in for a great year. I do think you should be able to get him at a really good price at this point because, as Mark alluded to, he's going to have a new quarterback. With that in mind, I think he's going to see a lot of stacked boxes because he's becoming the biggest threat there, which works for you in fantasy sometimes, but also will have defenses very aware that he's kind of slowly becoming one of the only threats with a new quarterback that's not named Nick Foles.
Okay. I mean, I would happily do Damian Williams for Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I don't like the situation that exists right there in KC right now. Let's go last one here. Juju Smith-Schuster or Odell Beckham Jr. both not really living up to snuff here. Let's say I wanted to acquire a running back. Who am I
Both
trading?
are-
Who am I trading to get either of these guys?
Man, you're going to have to pay a lot because both are hard to acquire. No one wants to miss out on the big seasons of both guys. Especially Juju. Juju could be the number one receiver in the NFL still. I know it's a little bit harder now with Hopkins going off week 1. And Odell Beckham, I mean, he had 10 points in half PPR leagues. If I have these guys, I'm holding. I don't want to sell low on these two studs. I know they're going to be good. If I was any of these owners and I have Odell Beckham, I've gotten a couple offers like Deshaun Jackson and Kenny Golladay. I would rather just hang on to my stud and hope that he's going to be that guy.
What if you got a shiny new toy like Josh Jacobs, the running back 6 from week 1, offered for Odell Beckham Jr., an offense that really looked to struggle and stall against the Titans? Is that an offer that entices you?
I mean,
It does.
personally,
It does entice
I
me.
think if that
Would you
I
do
think
it?
if that entices you at the week 1 level with names like OBJ and whatnot, after seeing just 1 week of performance from a guy like Josh Jacobs, unless you're in dire need of a running back, I think it's way too early to pull the trigger on such a massive trade. Like you're trading, arguably the best wide receiver in the league for a rookie starting running back who had a impressive week 1. To me, that's a bit of a stretch. I think that would be a bit of an overreaction to week 1 because Oakland could come out and be the Raiders that people know in week 2. The O-line could get blown up and he could put up pretty bad numbers. If you've
Right.
already traded Odell Beckham Jr. and you're sitting there with him and he goes for like 43 yards on 16 carries or something, you're going to not feel great about your panic sell. You'd be selling at the bottom for either of those two guys,
Right.
Juju or OBJ.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real message here is that unless you can get really solid value and someone's panic selling, don't make a trade, especially after week 1 or week 2. Just take a breather, let things sort of, settle, and
It's a long
see where it
season.
takes you. You
Yeah,
need,
if you
you need a
wanna
little
do
bit
a long
more
season.
data.
if you want to do a lateral trade like Lev Bell or Todd Gurley or something, yeah, you could go for it. But don't sell for. I tend to think you're right, Scotty. A Josh Jacobs that had one big week as a rookie, or Duke Johnson that had a big week as well. Like I wouldn't go too crazy on that.
Mm-hmm. And this is sort of where I'm going to take into sort of our trade targets. I'm going to give you 5 names that I just don't think that you can acquire right now because the value for fantasy owners is just far too high. I mean, we talk about being married to your players, and once they succeed, we just don't want to let them go, and that's going to be the case. You are going to overpay if you try to acquire these players. And I know you'll be tempted, but I'm going to say stay away. TJ Hawkinson from the Detroit Lions. I mean, rookie tight end, had an unbelievable week 1. Marquise Brown, also a rookie, hyper efficient, 157 yards on 4 receptions, 2 touchdowns as well. Josh Jacobs, a guy we just talked about. I think you're going to have to pay over the moon to get him. Derrick Henry's in that category for me as well. And then obviously Pat Mahomes. People wanted to see it, but he is still the number 1 fantasy quarterback and looked fantastic. So I just think you're not going to be able to pay up enough to get these guys, and they're not going to give you enough in return.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson's in that category right now as well. Mm-hmm. Had a huge week 1. I don't like to sell low. Don't sell low, people. Like, just wait. If you have like OJ Howard, for example, a tight end that was hyped up ultra hard in the offseason, taken in the 4th round, don't sell him now. Run him out. The tight end landscape's so ugly. Don't pay like a Darren Waller. I love Darren Waller. We talked about this, but don't. You know what I'm trying to say.
We got you.
It's all about adding them to the watch list. Wait for
Before
a
we
better
go,
entry point, and then make the move. Maybe weeks down the road, much better value.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are going to wrap things up with our stars of the week. We're going to keep it short and simple. 1 guy per host. Last week, we're just going to touch briefly on who we hit on and then give you our guy. So I'm going to start. I hit on the Dallas D, and my big home run hit last week, start of the week, was Mark Ingram. Absolute stud, lit it up. It looked really good in a run-first offense. I'm really tempering expectations a little bit for Mark Ingram just because they did play the Dolphins and hung 59 on them. But here's the case I'm going to make for my start of the week, and it's going to make a lot of people cringe. So, if you're driving right now, take a deep breath, look around you, make sure that you are safe. Ben Roethlisberger against the Seattle Seahawks. 29% owned. Probably not going to be started any higher than 29% of the time. But for me, Ben Roethlisberger is an absolute start. He is a bounce back candidate. This whole Steelers offense is. I mean, when you look at Ben Roethlisberger's fantasy stats, he has been historically known for his home road splits. Really poor on the road, really good at home. I think the difference is on average 12 points difference. 30 at home, 18 fantasy points on the road. We saw, abysmal performance in week 1. They only put up 3 against the Patriots. Ben Roethlisberger last year only finished outside the top 12 3 times. And in the following weeks, he finished as the quarterback 1, quarterback 5, and quarterback 5. So Ben Roethlisberger has a history of performing well at home and bouncing back from really poor performances. Look for Ben Roethlisberger to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback in week 2.
So I was only able to hit on one of my guys last week, and that is a dude who I finally didn't start. It's David Njoku. Got into the end zone. Wasn't expected to be like the first Brown to do that, if you ask me. But you know what? Just for that reason alone, I am going to take another Cleveland Brown this week. I'm going with Jarvis Landry, playing at New York. That's the Jets through Civic. Started in 50% of formats, and yeah, I feel like that is I feel like he's going to be just fine. He looked really well with the balls in his hands last week, and even made up some yards on a nice end around carry play. So yeah, I got Jarvis Landry this week, folks.
Let's get it.
like that, Marky, and I hit on a couple guys, but I didn't hit big. Not like our final host. I got Kyler Murray. It was worrisome for 2.5, 3 quarters, but he came back big, tied up the game in Detroit. It was pretty awesome, or in Arizona, I think it was. And Arizona Cardinals fans were concerned, but the savior Kyler Murray brought him back, and yeah, turned into a pretty good game. He was quarterback 6, I think, on the week. And then next, Calvin Ridley saved the week with a touchdown. I think he's going to be more involved. It was a really, really bad matchup against Minnesota, and I'm happy he did that. He outperformed Julio Jones, which is that in itself a feat. So my start of the week is a guy we talked about a little bit earlier, and that is Devin Singletary. They played the New York Giants, and yeah, should be a lot of fun. I think he only got 4 carries for 70 yards. He's going to get a lot more carries. I predict 17 carries for Singletary this week. He's going to perform really well. He's not going to have those yards per carry, but I'm not concerned because they play the New York Giants.
I have a question for Scott here real quick. Do you think Devin Singletary's efficiency is going to go up or down?
Well, my prediction about Lockett's production or efficiency going up was correct because he is 1 for 1 with a touchdown. But I will say I do believe it will have to fall.
Is that what that was his final line, Scotty?
No. That wasn't his final line, was it?
Lockett, 2 targets.
Yeah.
1 catch, 1 touchdown, 41 yards. So his efficiency.
Oh, so only a 50% catch rate.
Yeah, it's 50. He went down.
We were
Scotty.
discussing
bro,
touchdown
come on.
efficiency, were we not?
Yeah,
So
you're
there
right.
you
It
go.
went up 50%.
His touchdown efficiency was off the charts per catch. It was 100%.
Some days you just can't win. All right, Scott, walk us through yours. I mean, you were the biggest home run hitter of our group. You could have been a real man if you went with Delaney Walker for your tight end.
I did go for some variety.
Walk us through your studs.
I should have gone with Delaney Walker because, man, is
Yes.
he good. But
should've.
last week's big hit was Mr. Deshaun Jackson with 8 receptions, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the ultimate revenge start. Pretty happy about that one. I also picked Houston running back Duke Johnson. Not nearly as explosive of a performance, but he had about 90 some odd all-purpose yards, 55 yards rushing. So, still a good start, depending on how easily you got him. For this week, I am picking one of my new favorite wide receivers, Mr. Tyrell Williams against Kansas City. He is currently only being started by 38% of people in Yahoo fantasy leagues. He's owned by about 78%. So, I mean, obviously, he was probably one of the waiver wire pickups of the week. But if you can get him, going against Kansas City, we know what's going to happen most likely. Fireworks on both sides, and even though the Raiders looked really good last week, I'm sure they're going to be down to Kansas City, and that means they're going to be airing it out, trying to make their way back, and he is the clear-cut number 1 in that offense, so I see a repeat big week for him.
Love it. A little bit of repeat, a little bit of bounce back, a little bit of increased workload. It's a good spread, boys. Look, that's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you so much for kicking it with us. I'm going to remind you guys, if you haven't already, go ahead and, leave us a review, leave us a rating. Your feedback is super, super important to us and, the success of this podcast. So if you've been listening this long, just go ahead and do a review for us. It would mean the world, okay? We are going to be live on Sleeper. And if Landon isn't trigger happy, we'll be doing it at about 11:30, not 10:30. But look for us. We'll tweet out the link to our chat. Had lots of you in there last week. Got a lot of good feedback from it. So go ahead, come out, hang with us, answer, ask some questions. We'll do our best to answer it, and just hang out, man. It'll be lots of fun.
Yeah, see you guys. Have a good weekend. Good luck in all your
managing
matchups.
to you.
Hopefully,
And I'll be knocking out my second co-host of this podcast in our
Bring it.
listening league.
The ultimate
you're on notice,
underdog
boy.
this week.
And then also
Let's
getting
go.
smothered in our Dynasty League.
Yes.
watch out for DK. Some DK values. We hit pretty hard last week on some tournament plays.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that'll be out Sunday morning. So look for that right in the morning and get us on Sleeper. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Saturday Morning Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at SMS_fantasy and support this independent podcast at patreon.com/Saturday Morning Snap.